the reason we do Sensei Chats twice a week is not everybody has time in life, right? Everyone has a job, hobbies, friends and family, people that they work with. It's good to see everybody. Hi, let me just get through this and I'll say what's up to everybody. We don't have a whole lot of time in life, right? And when you can go to a community or somewhere where they can update you just in an hour and a half a session, or whatever it is, on all the latest crypto news, on regulation and what's happening with XRP or XDC or Casper, all this stuff, that's very important, right? You can be in your car listening to this and catching up on everything that's going on in crypto that week. And so these chats really do help you figure out what's happening, why is it happening, what can we look out for. And I cover not just crypto, I cover technology, I cover BRICS, I cover what's going on with the banking crisis, I cover everything. So without further ado, let's get into this, guys. So share my screen. Let's pray. Let's pray, guys. Let's pray this works together, and this goes off without a hit. So share screen. We're going to share the StreamYard screen. Allow, and there should be a slight delay, but this should work. All right. If this doesn't work, Lawrence, you need to call me right away, please. All right. I know you're there listening. Call me right away if this isn't saying. All right. So we are on CoinMarketCap, guys. I just want to update you with where we are right now. We're about 1.2 trillion global market cap. As you can see, the last 7 days, some tokens have done better than others. We're kind of in a weird kind of state right now as far as what's going on with regulation in the US. And we're going to cover a ton of topics today. We're going to cover what's going on with XRP. We're going to cover what's going on with regulation. I have XDC information. I have Casper information. I have some information on some other projects you might not know about. There's so much information to go over. Let's just make sure you guys can see it works. Oh, I love it. Okay. So I want to start with the current banking crisis, because I think what we see on the general news, guys, is basically them telling us, hey, everything's fine. It's all sunshine and rainbows. There's no other problems. I have to disagree strongly with that. And let's go through some information first, and then we'll get into some crypto stuff. So the regional banking crisis began 2 months ago. Inflation in the US hit 5% for the 23rd straight month. As a result, the events have challenged the US dollar over the last month. Here's a thread on every major challenging event that's challenging the US dollar. So what's happening here around the world here is Saudi Arabia and China are building an oil refinery for about $12 billion. China and France complete first liquid natural gas trade in Chinese yuan. So instead of using the US dollar, which is the petrodollar agreement, now they're using either the yuan or a ruble or their own currencies and not the US dollar. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS announced development of a new currency, which is going to be digital. I believe this currency is going to be backed partially by gold and their own sovereign CBDCs, but this is going to add tremendous value on whatever blockchains these decide to go on. It also goes on to say China and Brazil agreed to use the Chinese yuan to settle trade rather than using US dollars. Also, Brazil and Argentina and the South America states are working on their own common currency to trade in between each other as well. So you have all of these different countries that were used to using the US dollar for trade now are ditching it and using other means with CBDCs and these other areas to settle all of these different things, right? So Saudi Arabia considers accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales. This is really the death of the OPEC agreement, right? Russia considers using Chinese yuan as a reserve currency. The president of Kenya tells citizens to get rid of US dollars. China and Russia agreed to the use of Chinese the yuan for settlement. Data shows that Russian companies issued bonds in yuan worth equivalent of $7 billion in a year. IMF data shows that Russia is now 33% of all Chinese reserves in yuan. India says that it will settle trade in Indian rupees with certain countries rather than dollars, right? So now you have all the BRICS countries not using dollars anymore. Chinese yuan passes euro to become Brazil's second largest currency in foreign reserves. 70% of trades in between China and Russia are now between yuan and rubles. 19 new countries submit to join BRICS. Actually, this is a much higher number, guys. I've heard the number as high as 60 now. Other nations want to join the BRICS Plus alliance. And you know what this is going to do? This is going to force all of these other countries countries to update their data, their financial infrastructure, right? Because if the Chinese yuan and the digital ruble and the digital rupee and all of these CBDCs are being used, they're going to tokenize oil and gas and gold and all of that, and it's going to be traded very easily throughout these countries by DLT and blockchain. Okay. It also says Bangladesh pays $318 million loan using Chinese yuan. BRICS are projected to pass the G7 economic growth. Argentina to pay imports to Chinese yuan instead of US dollar. Right, guys? There's so much stuff happening right now against the US dollar. We all need to be paying attention to this. In Dropbox, DBX announces that they will lay off 16% of their employees. That brings the tech layoffs to 185,000. You can expect more layoffs to come. The Fed really wants to see about 4 to 5 million people unemployed in America, 4 to 5%. And that is quite a substantial amount of people unemployed. And so that is kind of what the Fed is trying to do here. And it's really taking hold in the U.S. and causing, I think we are going to enter into a recession over the next few months. And I think that's why you see the stock market kind of not knowing what to do, in the crypto market not knowing what to do. But check this out. Just in preliminary reading of U.S. Q1 2023 GDP comes in at 1.1%, well below the expectations of 2%. This comes after the Fed cut their GDP now estimate by more than half, less than 24 hours ago, to 1.1%, right? So you can see they're already making adjustments saying that we are not going to be as fiscally we're not going to have as much trade and as much growth as normal, and they're lowering their expectations to 1.1, and I think they're probably going to lower it even more than that. Also, we need to talk about failing banks, right? First Republic. If you were in any of my previous Sensei chats, you know all about First Republic Bank. I started talking about this last month. They had 10 big banks deposit $30 billion into them. And now they're still having problems. First Republic wants the U.S. government to rescue stock after it keeps falling. $100 billion in deposits report. So they've lost another $100 billion. This is only news from 2 days ago of cash outflow of First Republic. First Republic is in a lot of trouble. On the 26th, they halted trading on the stock 5 different times. I think it was up to 6 different times. As you can see here. So I do think First Republic Bank is going to fail here soon. Since March 1st of Shares Republic have been halted over 90 times. So they have stopped trading on the stock over 90 times. First Republic, to stop people from fleeing and selling the stock. The bank reported over 100 billion deposits were lost in Q1 2023. Meanwhile, the Fed and the FDIC continue to say that they are working and that the banking system is strong. Also, the U.S. government is currently unwilling to intervene on the First Republic Bank, according to CNBC. What this means is if First Republic Bank does go under, that they might not be backstopped by the government, which means the government might not come in and save all the deposits over 250,000. Remember, FDIC insurance, guys, they only have about $126 billion in that fund. And when you talk about, currently in the US, there's a 620 billion in unrealized losses. And what unrealized losses means, if you don't know, if you're new and you're just trying to get into this information, is that the banks, what happened during the C word, the C19 word, a lot of people got stimulus and they got money, right? And what happened was they all deposited it into the bank. And during that time, rates were very low. So banks cannot hold a certain amount of cash on hand. They have to turn it into stuff like securities or home loans or business loans, right? So what they did was they went out and bought billions and billions of dollars of long-term treasury bills. And what happened is the rate on the bills is about 1.3 to 1.5%. Right now, you can move your money into a money market fund, which is a little bit safer, and you can get 4 to 5% on your money. So this is what you're seeing. You're seeing a lot of people taking money out of regional banks for a much higher rate. Like in your savings account, you might be getting 0.5 or 0.25. And so you are going to see problems with more banks failing here, right? First Republic Bank reports totals of deposits of 104 billion, well below expectations of 137 billion. FRC deposits are down 40% of their levels before the banking crisis. First Republic also announced 25% layoff, right? I'm just trying to show you that the banking crisis isn't over, and it is coming full circle here. And you do talk about regulators are now expecting to seize First Republic Bank, according to Fox News. We're going to see how this happens. And the stock, let me just show you what's going on with the stock here too. 1 second. Check out this, guys. This is First Republic stock as of today, right now, 387. So I do think this is the next bank to fail. I called Credit Suisse failing last year as well. And a bunch of other different things in the community. So we were all pretty much prepared for what was going to happen. But I also want to show you this too. Population and growth declined by year, state by state. So top gainers, Florida, South Carolina, Idaho, Montana, Texas. And the top losers are New York, Illinois, Louisiana, California, and New Jersey, right? So a lot of people are working from home and are not going into the office, right? And so historically, this is not bad. Check this out. San Francisco hit basically 30% vacancy rate in the first quarter of 2023, the highest record ever, sevenfold increase at the start of 2020. So these are people not renewing their businesses, and they're having people working from home. So this is also killing the business industry. So we also need to look at what's happening in the current the cycle of office buildings, right? If banks cannot get people into their office buildings, they're going to be losing money, not only on their unrealized losses of all these securities that they bought, but they're also going to be losing people not renewing their leases because of rates that are too high. So if people tell you that the current banking system is okay, don't believe them. Do your own due diligence, and you can find out for a lot of good information yourself just by kind of going through this, okay? And we'll talk more about this later too. All right, so also I want to show you this. Credit card debt in the US is about to pass $1 trillion. Average interest rate on that debt is 25%. So this is not just in the US, guys. This is worldwide. But I want to show you how bad the system is currently in the US. And a global financial reset really isn't that far-fetched when you think about the entire current correspondent banking system is breaking. Casper is one of my favorite projects. It's in my top 5. I just wanted to remind you guys that this is an incredible project. They're getting new partnerships. They just became partners of the World Economic Forum. I have different thoughts about the World Economic Forum and what they're trying to do, but it is a big deal because there's a lot of big players that are in the World Economic Forum, and Casper Labs is also working in them and with XRP and some other stuff. The coolest thing about Casper Labs, guys, is they have mutable smart contracts, which means you can upgrade the smart contract as you go. So think about businesses, right? Think about businesses and services that they build out, okay? You have to imagine this, that sometimes when you're building out a specific product, a year later, that specific product might be kind of old, right? And you need to make adjustments and change. So instead of creating a whole new smart contract, you can actually go in and update that smart contract. And this is going to be huge for big business. This is why Casper Labs is in my top 5. We've been buying Casper under 2 cents. We've been talking about Casper Labs in the Crypto Narratives Discord for quite some time, since mid last year. It's a great project. If you haven't taken a look at Casper, I really suggest that you do. They also, here's a partnership with Amazon. Here you go. Check this out. So the blockchain trilemma, guys, is like it's security, scalability, and there's one other one, but it's hard to have if your blockchain is highly secure, it might not be scalable, and if it's highly scalable, it might not be secure. So solving the blockchain trilemma is a big thing, and that is why Casper Labs is definitely in my top 5 choices of projects. And also too, IPWE launches a SIAM solution to deploy 25 million patents on the Casper network, guys. So there's a lot of really amazing things happening with Casper, and I think it's really undervalued. Of course, I am not a financial advisor. I am just somebody that loves to investigate into crypto, into technology, and find out what is the best technology possible that is going to be used, that is going to make it through regulation. And Casper Labs is definitely one of those. And this is Casper right here, guys. If you want to go ahead and catch up on them and what they're doing, please do so. All right, from Bad Garlinghouse, the US may be moving backwards, but I feel like the focus is on the positive. In the last few months, the EU, the UK, and the AU have all moved forward with new regulatory frameworks and regimes for crypto activities, right? And they put out this Q1 report, which I actually have right here, and I'm going to show you here in a second. So yeah, here's the Q1 report is live. Let me just kind of pull it over here. Sorry, a little bit. I'm ADHD, guys, so sometimes I get things side to side or mixed up. But here's the notable takeaways. A total of total XRP sales by Ripple in Q1 2023 net purchases were 361 million versus 226 million the previous quarter. So sales are definitely up. XRP ledger on-chain activity remains strong, with decentralized exchange volumes at 34% to 115 million in Q1 2023 versus Q4 2022. XRP average daily volume on centralized exchanges jumped 46% in Q1 and 1 billion Q1 1 billion from 698 million. The EU, the UK, and the EU proposed new regulatory regimes for focused on crypto licensing and activity for frameworks, and developers propose a new interoperability standard XLS 38D for the XRP ledger that would enable users to transfer digital assets between data blockchains regardless of underlying protocol and program. This is called interoperability. I won't bore you with the rest of the report, but if you guys have some time, please go in here and read all this. There's some really good information in here about transactions and what's going on the XRP ledger. Let's keep moving here. And also too, this is an old document. I can't remember who put this out, but it might be JP Morgan. But you have most relevant and wholesale CBDCs. You have Swift GPI. Swift GPI doesn't deal with settlement; it deals with messaging. Just so you know. And then you have examples: JP Morgan Coin and XRP. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of documents. I've been in crypto 4 years. I've interviewed hundreds of crypto projects, and I've seen so many documents I can't even count. And they normally say XRP, XLM. Some of them say, HBAR or Algorand, but the majority are with XRP. And that is why it's my favorite token, because it has so many connections. You're not going to have the world using Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's just too expensive, especially if it's smaller transactions. Also, you're not going to have the world using JP Morgan coin. Think about this. JP Morgan makes their own coin. Wells Fargo makes their own coin. UBS makes their own coin. Yeah, what's up?
It still says your sharing window is frozen now, so maybe try the thing again you did before to fix it.
It's frozen? Okay, hold on. So let me remove this. I'm sorry, guys. This is add to stream. 1 second. Is it working now? Hold on, stop stream. I'm sorry, guys. I'll use a different thing next time. I do apologize. StreamYard is not the business. All right, Lauren, are we caught back up? Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, it seems to be moving in.
Okay, call me back if it doesn't, okay?
Yeah.
All right, I apologize, guys. So, it's StreamYard. I'll find a different solution next time. This is the first time we're doing it, so bear with me. I do appreciate your patience with me. But I just want to show you, this is from Riz XRP, talking about integration of new technologies to present to the future. Technology advancements like blockchain and artificial intelligence AI will have a major impact on the future of digital banking. Blockchain technology is being utilized to increase the security effectiveness of cross-border payments, with companies like Ripple partnering with banks around the world, right? You see a lot of this talk happening about Ripple. And then also too, you have this whole Mike Novogratz, you have this whole thing going on with Ethereum and Joseph Lubin. I have a couple clips here I want to show you, which are very interesting. Check this out.
In 2015, you sold 500,000 Ethereum to Mike Novogratz.
Right.
For like 99 cents or something like that. Tell me like the story of the transaction, which, well, would now worth almost $2 billion.
I mean, I think like Mike, or I think like we in the foundation at the time, right? We had almost no fiat left and almost no Bitcoin left. All we had was the 3 million ETH, right?
Okay.
And so the foundation at the time like had almost nothing, and like we needed to survive. We needed to continue developing Ethereum, and the markets were not mature yet, right? So we were very frantically just looking for individuals who wanted to buy like ETH so that we could continue funding the team. And I think I forget exactly how we reached out to Mike Novogratz. Like we might have reached out to him, or maybe Joe reached out to him, or maybe he reached out to us. But then he wanted to buy some Ether, and like we were happy to sell some Ether because on the one hand, it was a very good deal for Mike Novogratz, and it was a very good deal for the other people that bought Ether, just like institutional at the time. But at the same time, like those transactions helped the Ethereum Foundation survive, right? If they did not happen, then the Ethereum Foundation would have had to just fire all of its people because it didn't have any money left. So it was a huge win for them, and it was a huge win for Ethereum as well.
So by the end of the day, it was a good deal.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it true that you've discussed the price and after that you changed the price to 99 cents because the market was like better for Ethereum? Because right now, Mike's when he's like referring to that transaction was like, I was discussing with Vitalik about an amount, and after that, because he was lagging like the decision, he's saying like Vitalik was like, okay, now because you were late to the party, the price has changed.
It was because the price on the secondary markets had gone up, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we were just benchmarking against like the secondary markets that existed then.
Okay.
Okay, so sorry guys, I know we're having some troubles, but I'm gonna keep trying to go through this. I'm playing a Gary Gensler clip here that talks about Mike Novogratz. Hopefully this comes through. I'm not gonna enlarge it. I'm just gonna make it the same here. Let me just make sure StreamYard is, yeah, so it should be working here. Okay, cool. Audio. Why isn't the audio working? So you're saying you can't hear me speak? Or the audio from the thing isn't working? The audio from the clips are not working. Is that what you're telling me? I'm sorry, guys. I used screen share before on this, and you can't hear this.
Your
Lawrence?
view of whether Ethereum is a security or not.
Audio's
I think
good.
you've actually
Okay.
suggested it isn't, but then why you believe that Ripple is a security. And I know there's an ongoing lawsuit related to Ripple, but could you speak to the Ethereum issue?
Jay, let me ask you about something that it winds up in my Twitter feed constantly. I've tried to look into it and done a little research on it. There's this argument about an action that the SEC brought on your last day as the chair of the SEC. This was the one to go after Ripple Labs executives, the CEO, the general counsel, and others, and kind of come after them for some sales that they had planned and whether they were upfront.
All right, guys, hold on. I'm being told you guys cannot see what's going on here. Stop sharing. Present. Share screen. I apologize, guys. This should be working. I don't know why it's not. Lawrence, can you see it? Is this working? Can you see it? Nope, doesn't work. You can't see what I'm seeing now? Lawrence, can you answer me?
There has been all kinds of speculation because Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO, the general counsel, have been very public in their pushing back and fighting the SEC on this.
Man, I hate StreamYard. Okay, remove. I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys are here to see a good thing, and this is just, it's just not working. I truly apologize, guys.
And they've done some mudslinging and said that you and others at the SEC were compromised in this decision, that you had input that was coming in from people who are maybe Ethereum fans or others along the way. I get this question constantly. I just want to put it to you. What happened, and what do you say to those accusations?
A person can buy from any number of different identities. We may limit the size, the unit size of a sale to make it easier to disguise. Let's say if you're a whale and you want some privacy, you can buy 50,000 units and so nobody scares people with an enormous initial purchase.
So basically what happened, guys, with Ethereum when they did their ICO, they allowed people, whales, to come with different emails and fake whatever to buy more Ethereum, right? So they had an ICO. They let people kind of abuse the system, buy it all out, whatever they wanted to. That is why I'm really worried about Ethereum in the end and the free pass that they're getting. I'm going to play a little bit more of this and we'll move on.
So nobody scares. Email address just so that we can make sure that everything works smoothly the whole way through the process.
All right, so this is basically saying, I think that the discovery is related to Bitcoin and Ether is relevant. I think it's relevant to the court's eventual analysis with respect to the Howey factors, but I also think it's relevant the objective of the review of the defendants. Understanding it is in thinking about the aiding and abetting charge or aiding and abetting count. I also think it is relevant to the fair notice defense that Ripple is raising. So for all of those reasons, I think discovery into Bitcoin and Ether is appropriate, and I'm going to authorize it. So they're going to be looking into Ethereum, and they're going to be looking into Bitcoin. So just be very careful. Here's another clip of Gary just talking plainly about Ethereum. Check this out.
The vast number of these thousands of tokens, without prejudging any one of them, meet the standard of being a security. And thus the platforms have an obligation to come in, register, work with us.
Okay, we know what the problem is. Every time I maximize the screen, the thing stops. I got it. I just can't maximize stuff. Okay, that's all I need to do. I apologize. I'm going to do a giveaway for this shitstorm of a thing. I do apologize. Don't maximize any videos. We just figured that out, guys. We just figured that out. Okay, I will not maximize any videos again. Okay, so let me just play this. No more maximizing.
We already know in the U.S. and in many other jurisdictions that 3/4 of the market are not ICOs or not what would be called securities, even in the U.S., Canada, and Taiwan.
So when Gary Gensler was teaching at MIT, he said that one third of crypto are not securities, and that now he's saying that every crypto is a security. So he's basically, when he wasn't the chair of the SEC, everything is great and grand, but now that he's the chair of the SEC, everything is a security and you have to come register. Let me play this back for you just one last time.
To come in, register, work with us.
So we already know in the U.S. and in many other jurisdictions that 3/4 of the market are not ICOs or not what would be called securities, even in the U.S., Canada, and Taiwan, the 3 jurisdictions that follow something similar to the Howey test that we've talked about. 3/4 of the market is non-securities. It's just a commodity, a cash crypto.
All right, so he backed forth. He had this video, right, where he talks about it. I just played it for you as that 42-second video, but it's interesting how he does now flip-flop from, Gary's tragic video discovered states majority of crypto market is non-securities, and now everything's a security. So as you can see, in America, the problem is Gary Gensler and the SEC. It's not everything else. And this is also Aaron Wright talking about consensus. I'm going to play this video real quick. It's 33 seconds and we'll move on.
So what does it mean to be a decentralized network? So there's an ongoing conversation both on Twitter and other forums trying to figure out what that means. The SEC and other regulators may keep it purposely vague. They may actually not find many of these networks to be decentralized. So that gives the SEC, a bit of power here and the potential to actually become kingmakers or queenmakers or unidentified powerful makers in order to kind of pick and choose which technology we use.
And remember, Gary Gensler said himself, he works for the banks. The banks are in his office. He talks to Jamie Dimon twice a week. So the banks are who he's representing. He's not there to represent me and you as the retail investor. He's there to protect the banks. And JP Morgan has a huge stake in Ethereum. And that's why we think we saw the lawsuit against Ripple when we saw it, because JP Morgan and Ethereum were not ready for what needed to happen here. So I do think there's a big thing behind Ethereum that everyone should be paying attention to, and just be careful if you own Ethereum. Let's move on from Ethereum. Let's talk about Brad Garlinghouse, and we got some other XRP news here.
Most people outside the United States don't really care that the SEC is suing us. I'll tell you a very quick, funny story. I'll keep it short. I was in the Middle East last fall, and we were meeting with customers. I have one of the Ripple team members who's based there. It's really early in the morning. My time zones are all screwed up. We're meeting the CEO of a payments company, and but the employee from Team Ripple says, "Well, why don't you give an update on what's going on at Ripple?" And I start talking about the SEC. And after the meeting, he very delicately says to me, "No one gives a shit." And his point was, if you're not in the United States, the governments in Abu Dhabi, governments in Switzerland, Singapore, UK, Japan, they provided the clarity how they view and categorize digital assets, and they don't care that the United States SEC has a viewpoint that is, pending in court. Most people outside the United States don't really care that the SEC is suing us. I'll tell you a very quick, funny story.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm used to maximizing everything for my community. I do apologize. This is totally my fault.
Well over half of our total transaction volume, because we do have a fiat and XRP enabled product called on-demand liquidity. Over half of all of our transactions go through XRP now. Over half of
it's actually 60% now. That's an old video. All right, April 2023 article mentions Ripple trying blockchain into a global standard like ISO 20022. Ripple joining the ISO 20022 concerted effort to thrust XRP into the forefront of the international finance. And is that blowing up? That's not blowing up a video, right? It's just opening. I hope that doesn't screw it up. It says that Ripple XRP is also compliant. It says not easy to become ISO 20022 compliant. Blockchain tie in with global standard. And it says Ripple to embed with the World Economic Forum, right? So you really do need to pay attention to who the partners and why that they're partners. I hope that does not screw up the thing. I'm waiting to hear from Lawrence if that did screw up the thing. All right, I think we're still good. All right, let's keep going. So here's another video.
The data interoperability and standards.
So Swift.
The data interoperability.
Sorry. You just click a button and it just opens, guys. I know you hate me. I know you hate me. I know you do. I will not be using StreamYard from here on out. So I do apologize. Next time I owe you another chat that is not filled with crap.
And Juliet, if we go on as we have, the cost of duplication of interfaces and non-standard processes will increase. They won't be decreasing. This is another clear trend that we're seeing with the growth of APIs and with the emergence of DLT and digital assets handling solutions. New business entrants are bringing pressures to build solutions that will ultimately lead to fragmentation for all of us. I strongly believe the leadership is required to change this and make the industry focus on the value add rather than translation. This isn't a problem that one firm can solve or even one person. We need an industry approach. And it was for this reason we kicked off the ISA survey in mid-2020 and published the findings in April of this year. We really needed to understand what the industry was thinking about this topic.
All right, this is Swift now talking.
Adopting ISO 20022 will ensure you don't miss out on the growing data-driven markets enabled by APIs. These include open finance and digital assets. APIs are growing fast, not just as the basis of today's platform economy, but as the foundation for tomorrow's data-led economy. And if APIs use a common language too, we can reach that future faster. That's why Swift is extending the ISO 20022 data model to APIs, so developers can build a common language into every API they design. So, to make sure your business is ready to seize new opportunities, be part of the future of finance. Be part of the move to ISO 20022.
And I'm going to show you some connections with Swift and some banks here at the end of this that is going to blow your mind about who they're actually working with and testing. But here you go. Citi 2023 report on blockchain. Which central banks have DLT, non-DLT, CBDCs, ISO, inter-blockchain messaging, and bridging? So when you actually pull this up, it does give you kind of some countries and who they're working with. You do have Bhutan and the XRP ledger, but I've seen research talking about, so these are just their testing technologies. This is not saying that they're going to be using these technologies, but when you have 52% or over 50% of banks in Japan using Ripple, and Yoshitaka Katao, who's the head of the SBI Global in Japan, said that every bank in Japan will be using XRP and Ripple by 2025. I think you need to take that into consideration. I have seen documents with Ripple working with the Bank of Australia and a bunch of other banks. Also, in Brazil, one of the Ripple partners for remittances had to get direct permission from the Central Bank of Brazil to launch their payment service. So I do think Brazil is going to be working with Ripple on that. Canada, I do think is, R3 and I do think they're going to be using Ripple and XRP. And it's interesting to see some of these things. When you see Ethereum and Hyperledger Buso, it's interesting to see, right? You do know Saudi Arabia, Sama is working with Ripple as well, and a bunch of other countries too. So this is just an interesting list from City GPS on who's working with what in March 2023. But I do think a lot of these guys, because you're gonna have options when you send payments, right? You're gonna have the Ethereum option. You're gonna have, hopefully not the Bitcoin option, but you're gonna have the Ethereum option. You're gonna have like the Ripple XRP ODL version, or maybe the version from Stellar. And whatever's cheapest, the person's going to use, right? When you're sending a payment on Ethereum, whatever you're sending, it can get pretty expensive. And when you're sending $5, $10 payments, you can't be paying $1 or $2 when you send those payments. So that's why I think they're going to be using something much, much cheaper. Hong Kong report on virtual asset service providers are also known as VASPs, plus Ripple cited as investment instrument for banking. So here you go is the SRG virtual assets. So Hong Kong, CBDC, their financial research here. And then it goes and talks about here, in the last 12-month period, we have discussed a full cycle in the crypto market, starting the year at a high, and then sharply entering into the bear market, driven by the chain of collapsing of giants within the industry. Yet the crypto market survives. 2022 was a tough year, a reboot year for learning and tough lessons. We saw that crypto is no different from any other asset class. It is very volatile and can go up quickly and can also go down quickly. We also see current regulation licensing regimes elsewhere in the world focusing on AML and KYC. Understand that any payment sent on the XRP ledger or XLM is going to have KYC on both ends of that transaction. Understand that it was built. The XRP ledger was built for banks and central banks to move money in between each other, so that KYC and AML is going to be there. And that's why you can't have Bitcoin as a international means of payment in between banks, because there is no KYC or AML on those. So that's why I just wanted to go over with you here too. And it says, falling well short of protecting crypto investors, users, and communities. Some of the giants who failed during the crypto winter claimed to have been regulated and into robust internal controls. Yet as things unravel, we see 3 companies had little or no appetite for risk management or internal control. So you do see Hong Kong opening up to crypto and crypto regulation. Also, this just came out. This is the U.S. Faster Payments Task Force. Ripple was the only blockchain company invited to this. I think this is back in like 2015. But this is an updated one. You have 44% of banks now implementing FedNow, which is the new system that's supposed to be going live in July. 62% have implemented a real-time gross payment settlement system. 85% have implemented or are implementing same-day ACH. And then 77% are implementing something like Zelle. And then 27% plan to upgrade to real-time payments. And then you still have that 44% implementing FedNow. I think this is going to pick up very fastly, guys. When you have a bank, right? If you're a bank and you don't upgrade your systems, and the bank across the street has upgraded their systems, your bank is going to fail. OBS and Streamlabs. Yeah, let's look into that, Lawrence. You do have a huge disadvantage, right? When you can offer your services like instant 365 payments to each bank, or sending money from person to person, or remittances. When you can offer those services and the bank across the street can't, you're probably going to move your money to the bank that offers you better, clearer, faster, and better services, right? And also to Amazon Web Services event discussing Ripple and Stellar ILP, which is Interledger Protocol, is being implemented via API to process payments on the blockchain, right? Here you go.
on-ramps to distribute for blockchain technologies such as Ripple and Stellar and Interledger. This is available via APIs, so developers, I think such as yourselves, can embed it into their applications and allow users to, integrate with USD or we have 8 fiat currencies coming on board and reach different countries. But this basically allows users to, interact with your ecosystems.
This woman is from Stronghold too, which also has some support from IBM and Stellar. I've been talking about Stronghold in our community for the last couple months. I do think it's a good project to look at. It is ISO compliant. And remember, it's not the token that is ISO compliant, guys. It's the company that is ISO compliant. You got to remember, you got to separate the two. It's not the token, it's the company that, so Ripple, the company is ISO compliant. They have all these regulations that they have to follow from the federal government. They follow all those things. They're regulated. So when they use XRP in their tools, they are ISO compliant. All right.
We're best collaborating with them up front. And then of course, payments, right? We also have someone on our team dedicated to seeing where XRP for payments can be of use and working with different merchants as well as consumers, platforms and apps to see where there could be a good opportunity for us. So now you collaborating.
So now you have the head of Amazon talking about their, and also talking with their distributors and their merchants using something like XRP for payments, right? Imagine a merchant not having to wait 3 or 4 days and not having to lose a little bit of that money every time somebody buys something. You buy something, you actually get instant settlement on the other side. The manufacturer is happy, they can do more business. Amazon is happy because that payment is processed and it's a lot cleaner. This is the way that the world is headed. So can you imagine all of the business that Amazon does if they do decide to use the XRP ledger, how much value that would bring onto the XRP ledger as far as payments? This is from Black Swan Capitalist, very good person to follow on Twitter here. He says, as global liquidity continues to drop, institutions have to rethink a sustainable monetary supply and solutions to provide liquidity across different currencies. Every day it becomes more evident that XRP plays a crucial role in this bridge. And it says Ripple processes 30 billion a day and 20 million transactions in 70 payout markets. And this is April 1st, 2023. Okay. Okay, cool. So guys, I talk a lot about BioFi. I don't get paid to talk about BioFi. I personally think BioFi is very underrated. I think the market cap of BioFi right now is like 750,000. I've been talking about BioFi for over a year. These guys were building 5 years before they even launched their token. They were supposed to launch on Constellation DAG, but that got delayed. So they launched on Avalanche. I do think this is something you guys want to be paying attention to. I'm going to show you a few things here. James Pilton just did an interview. This is a partnership with Green Heart CBD. I'm just going to play this quick clip here.
We're working with Constellation.
Okay, so this is Brian Ma. He is the CEO. He used to work for Visa. He has about 40 years of experience in the business of banking and in trade. So let me keep playing.
Right now on the Metagraph, and this is a very amazing thing that we're doing. So we picked a use case to pump a lot of data in through the Constellation ecosystem. So this is all authentication data, from biometric validations, the authentication phase of the access to an app, to a website, to something critical to you, like in UniSafeBox, right? There's the ability to access your most private and personal information using your biometrics. So we're working with Constellation now as an example to build that, integrate that into the Metagraph. This is an incredible thing that will take place over the next couple of months. So those engineering conversations are underway. And you've got all the seed products at different levels of development.
All right, and so I just want to show you guys, this is them. The reason I'm so bullish on them is this. It's called the Phoenix X1. The Phoenix X1, guys, check this out. So they've been working on a prototype about this, and they've been talking with some of the biggest phone carriers in the world, especially in Africa. They do have a couple deals that they're going to be announcing here soon about this X1 phone. But check this out. Imagine you have an Android phone that you can do all of your great stuff on, but it also has your Uni safe box, which you can put your seed phrases in. It's double encrypted. You also have a phone that can process transactions, right? So privacy and security measures puts in under control, dedicated blockchain interface, secure participated area, a decentralized security chip for stored data, cold storage wallet, cryptocurrencies. Android is the most popular world used wallet. So it comes with a crypto cold storage wallet, comes with a UniSafe box, blockchain exclusive system. So imagine as you're sleeping, your phone is processing and validating transactions, and you're making money as you sleep with your cell phone. That is what they're built. That is what they built here. It's a wallet plus a miner plus dApps, right? All in one. Okay. And I don't know of another company that is working on a phone like this. And I do know that they are very close with all of this technology. And they also have been working to try to get a deal with one of the biggest phone carriers. I can't say the exact phone carrier, but I'll say several. I'll say T-Mobile, I'll say AT&T, and I'll say Verizon. So one of those they have been working with for years to try to get this phone in their stores. Now that they have the prototypes built, these guys are going to be working really hard on that. And they also have something called an Ethos Metaverse. And I mean, this is a $680,000 market cap. I own a lot of this. I own about 25 million tokens, guys. I locked them up for 6 months. I'm staking them. I don't have plans to sell them. I'm not dumping on the market. I tell my community when I am buying. I tell my community when I am selling. But I do think this is a very underrated company. And once some of these announcements start coming out, I do think you're going to see a really nice value rise out of this project. But let's keep going. I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't want people saying, Sensei, you never told me about BioFi. You know, I don't. I look for projects that have real use cases and that have real partners, right? I'm not in the way of buying meme tokens and this and that. I want to be able
payments, right? We also have someone on our team.
So I don't want to be putting my money right now because regulation is around the corner, right? 2023, 2024. I think that a lot of crypto is going to disappear overnight. I think you're going to have tiers. They're going to have tiered systems for crypto. Like gold is a tier 1 asset, which allows banks to hold it. Some certain stocks and bonds and things like that are tier 1 assets, and that's what banks hold. I do think certain crypto assets will be tiered 1, and banks will be able to hold and use those. So look out for that. That is just my thought process. I don't know that to be a fact, but I think that's where we're heading. So banks are allowed to custody your crypto. Okay, this is from Riz XRP. Follow Riz. Riz does a lot of hard work on this. Let me just play this 1-minute clip.
So what are we learning? So we've got 2 announced projects, and then we've got 5 under NDA. Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan is a real CBDC. So there's a central bank, and they've issued a currency, and that's very much at decent stages at the moment. And Palau is actually a US dollar stablecoin. So Palau has its own government, but no central bank. So they use the US dollar. So we're issuing on the public blockchain, on the public XRP ledger, a USD stablecoin for this country to use. That's actually quite interesting for innovation because there's other things can be done with that.
Palau is issuing a dollar stablecoin on the XRP ledger. You just heard it out of Anthony Welfare's mouth, yet I hear people trying to argue that it's not. You just heard it out of his mouth.
So that's Darren Moore Jr., guys. Go follow him. He's got a great YouTube channel. He puts out a lot of great content. When I first got into crypto, I was listening to Darren Moore. He's got a great mind. All right, so now we're going to be talking about some stuff that is happening at Consensus. There's a lot of really great things. This is Caitlin Long. She's talking about a ledger system for traditional finance systems for both banking and securities. Check this out. This is really interesting.
Finance don't understand that the ledger systems that our traditional financial system run on, both in the banking system and in don't understand that the ledger systems that our traditional financial system run on, both in the banking system and in the security system, are not honest ledgers. And this is a really simple concept. All we really want is an honest ledger, because if we have an honest ledger, then the fruits of our labor can be saved in a way that someone else is not stealing it.
That's a very powerful idea. I mean,
I really like Caitlin Long. She's a very smart lady. Here's another clip of her.
One of the other reasons why we knew from the get-go, and I didn't share it at the time, but we did end up revealing it, was that one of the reporters put it in email. Okay, so when I say we had the receipts, your colleagues were asking, what did you have? We have it in email from the reporter. And the reporter actually said, I've been told that all of the crypto applicants at the Fed and the OCC have been asked simultaneously to withdraw their applications. There's the smoking gun right there, okay? Because how would that have otherwise happened? We are all applicants with due process protections under the law, as you know, Dean Evans. And these applications are supposed to stand on their own. But a reporter in writing told us we were all three simultaneously asked to withdraw. And then we subsequently learned that it was true. We were just the first, and it was confusing at the time, but now that all of us have been talking and now it's crystal clear what has happened, it's now really clear.
So guys, basically what's happening here is the Fed now does not want any competition. And that's what happened with Signature Bank, right? You had Silvergate Bank and you had Signature Bank. Signature Bank was not insolvent. They just got taken over because of what they handle with their crypto clients. So this is Caitlin Long. She's been trying to launch a sort of crypto bank where crypto is backed up one-to-one with US dollars or treasury bills. And she's been denied for years to open up a bank. So the US is really kind of screwed up on what they're trying to do here. I really like this. This is really cool. Look, the following image shows Ripple employees like Rosie Rios, Chris Larson, and several others that are connected to the Fed, US Treasury, and World Economic Forum, most important financial institutions in the world, right? So you have, as I zoom in here, you have Rosie Rios, right? So you have Ripple and Treasury, and these are kind of hard to read, but these are all kind of US. This is like the White House, and these are all kind of other designations. And I'll include these in my notes, and I'll figure out a way to post them onto Twitter or something. But Craig Phillips, Michael Warren, Susan Ashley, Michael Barr, who's actually the current head banking regulator of the country right now, Sandy O'Connor, who works for the FDIC. You have all of these people. I can't remember these people's names, but yeah, Chris Larson, Norman Reed, Karen Guilford, Gene Sperling, M. Teacher, M. Delante, Mary Jo White, and Jess Chang, right? You have some really all these people came from government agencies to one company. The writing is on the wall here for me, but if you still need some more information, please go watch my videos. I put out videos all the time about XRP and why I think it's going to be the most liquid asset on the planet very soon here. But who knows? I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Today we submitted our response to HM Treasury's consultation on the future regulatory regime for crypto assets. Our response was mainly focused on questions relevant to new forms of private issued digital money and stablecoins. You can read it here. I'm not going to get into this, guys, but basically what this is the public response to what they want to do as when they roll out a stablecoin here in the UK. Understand that the Bank of England has already said that it's going to be working with Ripple and using XRP to move that. The CHAPS system in England moves $1 trillion a day in value. And if they decide to use the Ripple and the XRP ledger to move that $1 trillion a day, that is $1 trillion a day in payments going through the XRP ledger. I just wanted to point that out. The WF Global Innovators Program in public-private cooperation brings new solutions with new resiliency. While many are here in AI and cybersecurity corporations, we see two prominent DLT projects contributing: XDC, Trada, and Casper. Right? So XDC is in my top 2. Casper's in my top 5. You got XRP, you have XDC, you get XDC, you have XLM, Quant, and you have Casper. That rounds out my top 5. If you want to know the rest of my tokens, I can, I now have super subscribers. I do have a Patreon. We set all this stuff up. If you like these chats and the information that you're getting from these, you can actually, instead of signing up for our Discord, you can sign up for some exclusive content on those different channels to support me and my team if you so choose to. I really appreciate you. This is a really interesting video. So this just happened. This is Crypto Ren sits down with Professor Pramod. I can't, I'm going to butcher his last name. I'm sorry. So I'm not even going to say it. But he's from Princeton to discuss the status of XDC 2.0 update. This is really interesting. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but the first couple minutes are pretty interesting.
Come on. Good to be here.
Thank
you for giving us your time. Thank you for giving us time.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you had a presentation today. Tell us a little bit about that. How did it go?
I was using this as an opportunity, a place to talk about what we are doing for underlying tech.
So there's a question in the chat about no competition for XRP with FedNow. Okay, so check this out, guys. FedNow is the intermediary, right? So you have Bank A here, right? And you have Bank B here, and they want to send a payment to each other. FedNow wants to be the middleman that controls that payment and through. The system that the FedNow is using is it can use, so check this out. Volpay FedNow. All right, so they're going to be using Volpay for this new FedNow system, okay? FedNow instant payments. If you haven't seen this before, let me just show it to you really quickly. Sorry for the break, but I just want to answer this person's questions. FedNow will soon be here. The Federal Reserve, 24/3/7/65 deposit institutions, right? And also too, if you look up Volpay plus Ripple, so this is the system that they're going to be using, the Volpay system, which uses Swift GPI, which is an instant settlement. Remember, this is messaging. This is Ripple, of course, where you can use on-demand liquidity for instant settlement. This is Visa B2B, Visa Direct, and MasterCard, okay? So Visa and MasterCard have both went out and partnered and bought companies like Earthport that are working with Ripple. So when I look at this, I see Ripple, I see Ripple, I see Ripple, I see Ripple, and I see Ripple when I look at all of this. I could be totally wrong here, but if you're talking about sending money instantly and having instant settlement, you are going to need to use blockchain to do that. Swift GPI cannot do that by itself. Okay. I hope that answers your question. And maybe we can talk about it a little bit more offline, but let's kind of get back into the action here because there's a lot more stuff to go over with you guys. That's very important. And I want to kind of get back to it. So yeah, we have, if you don't know about XDC, guys, this is a 7-minute clip. We've already been here for quite some time. I'm just going to post this clip in the chat, once I can. But this is a really good clip talking about the updates of 2.0, making it more secure, making it faster, enhancing upgrades. And XDC built a bridge to Corda for the TradeFi section. TradeFi is a $20 trillion market. And I do think XDC is going to be a huge player in this new market of shipping. And so when you're shipping something across the ocean, there's usually 27 parties involved. It's pretty crazy. You have like the shipping companies on both ends. You have the insurance companies. You have the shippers. You have the boats. You have all of the paperwork that goes with the shipments. All of that stuff is being digitized and laws are being changed in England and in Europe to facilitate this new instant trade here. And I have a bunch of stuff about what is XDC and why is it important and what it does here. I'm going to put this in all of my notes and I'm going to post it on Twitter for you guys to go through and realize. If you have not learned about XDC, this is like your first time hearing about it, guys, you really need to look at it right now. I bought XDC 2 years ago when it was like 0.0000 something. So, XDC is going to be a huge player. I don't think it's going to be as huge as XRP, but I really do think you guys should be paying attention. Trade tech to securitize trade finance receivables on the XDC network public blockchain. Trade tech is a World Economic Forum member, has selected XDC network to launch traded tokens. the trade finance backed fungible security tokens. The move is expected to deliver significant liquidity to the trade finance sector by securing a traditionally illiquid asset class on the XCC network. So what they're talking about here, guys, is digitizing stocks, digitizing trade, and collaborating with Trada. So this is a huge deal, and is also partnership with the ITFA, Zinfin's XDC network, the first blockchain company to join the global TFD initiative. And this is a whole nother video I can make, but I just wanted to point out this information. My community knows all of this stuff. I've gone over this stuff several times with them. But if you're new to listening to me talk about crypto and this, I can do a whole video just on XDC that would take an hour and a half and point out all of this great information. And there's also a wallet now that they've made, a Elipol wallet. I don't have an affiliate thing. I'm just trying to show you that they built a new wallet here that can handle, and you can put XDC on this, and it's air gapped as well. But I don't have a link or anything. I just wanted to point this thing out to you, right? And then you have R3 Quarter has built a bridge and a pub to public blockchain's arrival of Ethereum-based XDC. XDC is a fork of Ethereum without the stupid fees, right? It's proof of stake. It doesn't have the high fees that Ethereum does. To send a transaction on XDC, I think it's like 0.00001 XDC or something. It's very, very cheap. And that's what, all of these different companies I think are going to be using, because it is cheap and it is effective. And then here's that cold storage wallet. All right, so we got some more stuff happening, especially with Congress, guys, I want to get into. So let's play this.
I have some sympathy for that. I need to tell you, Daniela, as a consequence of the popularity of central bank digital currency, and as a function of my concern for poor people, I am using much more cash in day-to-day transactions.
Interesting. Okay.
It's one thing that I personally can do. In particular now, when I go to restaurants, I often pay cash. And what I do, Daniela, as a consciousness-raising exercise, is I call the waiter or waitress over, and I say, this which I'm giving you is not a tip. The IRS suggests that a tip is taxable. This is a gift. I am giving this to you.
Yes. I thought this was really cool. I didn't know that you could do this, guys, but people are hurting for money right now. And if they can you can give somebody up to $17,000 without having to, file any paperwork. But instead of giving somebody a tip, you say, hey, this is not a tip, this is a gift, and they actually won't be taxed on it.
And my interpretation and the IRS's interpretation is that a gift up to $17,000 per recipient is non-taxable. Please understand that this cash, which I am giving you, is, in the eyes of the giver, not a gift, which is taxable, but a tip, which is non-taxable.
So I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to share that with you. Okay. All right. So check this out. This is pretty interesting. We're talking about Bitcoin.
Who is the mastermind behind the Silk Road? But the government was sure going to try and find out. In fact, 2 federal task forces were back on the East Coast trying to do just that, to find out who was running the Silk Road. Where in the world were they located? And up on your screen, you see one of these task forces that was comprised of things like you've all heard of, the FBI, the Marshals, the DEA, and a whole other host of alphabet soup of agencies. And this task force was trying to find out who is running the Silk Road.
We looked at Bitcoin was the most prevalent at that point. We'd seized quite a bit of it, millions of dollars worth under the Silk Road investigation. So one of our agents who started looking at another online marketplace through the deep web, which was called Black Market Reloaded, they were sending weapons through packages and ordering them on the dark web. And he was really, really smart, forward-leaning agent. And he goes, I want to go interview Satoshi Nakamoto. And we're like, what? He said, yeah, I want to go interview this guy. And at the time, we're like, hey, it's a figment of somebody's imagination. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not true. So, we had all this pushback from our headquarters. And we thought, hey, if an agent wants to go talk to him and we have some money, why don't we send him? Let's find out how this works. So as it came to be, the agents flew out to California and they realized that he wasn't alone in creating this. There were 3 other people, and they sat down and met with them and talked to them to find out how this actually works and what their reason for it was.
So 4 people designed the Bitcoin network, but I also thought this was really interesting too.
As you can see here, instead of going through a series of convoluted hops, the stolen funds from the Silk Road accounts went straight to one place, to Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was a cryptocurrency exchange based in Japan, but it too had suffered a series of hacks to the tune of $500 million. And what this meant was that by the time we traced this to Japan and to Mt. Gox, there were no records available for us to go look at. But remember what I told you about the blockchain, that it's immutable and it's permanent? So we were able to trace the flow of funds through the blockchain from Mt. Gox to a US financial institution.
Chase is an ideal partner.
And where that led was also a surprise. Right back to the Silk Road Task Force, but not to Knob, to a Secret Service agent on that same task force. A Secret Service agent by the name of Sean Bridges. But Sean Bridges was no ordinary Secret Service agent. He was joint duty assigned to the NSA. He was also the federal government's foremost expert in Tor and anonymizing technologies.
Again, with respect to Mt. Gox, there's not that much here that's all that unique outside of it being Bitcoin related. Bernie Madoff had his company banking at JP Morgan. JP Morgan caught on to the scam about a year before it collapsed. They pulled most of their money out of the Madoff fund, didn't tell their own account holders who were also with Madoff that they were doing that. After everything was revealed, the JP Morgan account holders who were also with Madoff, they sued JP Morgan for violating the fiduciary obligation that JP Morgan had to them, and they recovered over $2 billion in that lawsuit.
Thank you. And the JP Morgan executives went to jail, right? No. The JP Morgan executives went to jail?
No, they didn't. JP Morgan executives never go to jail. So Coinbase is out here now trying to fight for itself. Check this out. Please revise the risk factor to clarify that Bitcoin and Ether are only digital assets, as to which senior officials at the SEC have publicly expressed such a view. So you know what's interesting here in 2020? That Brian Armstrong and Coinbase, they really did not fight for crypto and rights and regulation, right? They thought they kind of were getting a free pass here. And now that they're under attack and now that they might be getting sued by the SEC, now they want all of us who, they've kind of abused over the past several years to join them to help fight the SEC. Now, I didn't keep my XRP on Coinbase for the snapshot, the XRP snapshot, December 20th, I think 2020 or 2021. I can't remember the exact year. I think it's 2021, guys. But if I screwed that up, I apologize. But they were supposed to give Flare tokens and Flare and Songbird tokens to the people that kept their XRP on it, and they still didn't do it years later. So I don't use Coinbase other to cash out. I think it's they're only in this for themselves. So I'd be very careful what you want to do with Coinbase, but they're really only out here looking out for themselves. So just be careful. Here's Jamie Dimon talking about Bitcoin being a pet rock. I know you guys have seen this, but I just wanted to play this again.
Because you just think the whole thing just is going to zero? Going to zero and it's fake?
Bitcoin itself is a hyped up fraud. It's a pet rock.
You're back to that?
Yeah,
really?
Of course, yeah.
So what do you make then of BlackRock and other firms that are investing in infrastructure?
No, that's different. Blockchain is a technology ledger system that we use to move information. We've used it to do overnight repo, intraday repo. We've used it to move money.
Right.
So that is a ledger. That's a technology ledger type of thing that we think will be deployable. Remember, we've been talking about that for 12 years too, and very little's been done.
So Bitcoin's based on a distributed ledger. Yeah, it has all the characteristics of a store of value. It's immutable. It's scarce.
Totally untrue. It's
21 million.
Oh yeah, really? How do you know it's going to stop at 21 million?
Because
I've mentioned this to people.
Satoshi.
Everyone says that. Well, maybe it's going to get to 21 million, and Satoshi's picture is going to come up and laugh at you all.
All right, so guys, my exact feelings on Bitcoin are that I worry about a 51% attack, and I'll show you towards the end of this chat that Russia is now the second leading controller of Bitcoin mining pools, and if Russia and China become together have over 51% of the pool, or Russia itself gets 51% of the mining pool of the Bitcoin network, they can then they can freeze transactions. They can pretty much do whatever they want with the network. And if that were to take place, I guarantee you countries like the G7 and the G20 would ban Bitcoin mining or Bitcoin transactions in the world, because they would facilitate it with Russia. Now, I don't think what happened, I'm not here to talk about Russia and invading Ukraine and who's right and who's wrong. I do know that since the Russian war, 11,000 sanctions were put on Russia, 1,100 of them by the US, and the rest of the world took the rest. So if Russia does control the majority of the mining pool, the Bitcoin network, just be very careful. That's why I do not hold any Bitcoin. I do think that shoe is to drop. Now, I got some really good clips here from what's happening right now, currently in these hearings in the U.S. I want to play some of these. These are very important. So let me just play some of these. This is Brad Sherman. If you are in Brad Sherman's district, he's in California, I think in the San Bernardino Valley. Don't vote for this guy. This guy's an asshole. He is paid off by the banks. He wants to keep the current banking system how it is. He doesn't want to upgrade it to this cheaper, more efficient system. I want you to listen to this.
Tens of billions of dollars has been transferred to Ukraine using traditional currencies. And lots of money has gone to Russia evading our sanctions using cryptocurrency. Fear of missing out. Somebody else may get ahead of us in this technology. Bahamas is ahead of us. Peru is ahead of us in cocaine cultivation. China is ahead of us in organ harvesting, and the Cayman Islands is ahead of us in financial crime. We don't need to catch up. Fentanyl is a new innovative technology. We don't need a regulatory system that rewards those who created that innovation. There are gaps in our regulatory system because Congress fails to pass a law prohibiting America from buying cryptocurrency.
This guy wants to stop Americans from owning cryptocurrency. I'm not really going to play any more of this, but understand Brad Sherman, he is anti-crypto and he is not for us. I want to play something from a couple different people that actually believe in cryptocurrency. So on the Republican side here, that really want to push cryptocurrency and get regulation for America. Let me play these clips because these are the ones that really matter.
I want to thank you for how you've conducted this subcommittee and the collegial efforts you're trying to lead to build consensus here. Digital assets are here to stay. This ecosystem has been denied legal clarity for too long, and both market participants and consumers are worse off because of it. We have a market that lacks clarity, and we have a duty to create a regulatory environment that allows responsible innovation and responsible consumer protection to sit side by side with appropriate legal clarity. We need that innovation here in the United States. If we don't act, if Congress doesn't act, the rest of the world will. The Europeans are ahead of us in a market structure, Bill. The UK regime is ahead of us. They've provided legal clarity while we have not. We need to do our work, and it starts here in this subcommittee with these members. And I want to thank this panel for their expertise in bringing forward ideas on how to protect consumers and ensure innovation happens here. Yield back.
So yeah, I really like what the Republicans are doing here. Here's another great, another video from Mike Flood. I think this is the longer version. There's two parts where Mike Flood talked. I really want to play these because these are important.
So amendment, the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Flood, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Equal Opportunity for All Investors Act of 2023 is an important step towards providing more opportunities to a larger slice of the American investing public. I'd like to thank Chairman McHenry, Ranking Member Waters, and my Democratic colleague, Representative Wiley Nickel, all for their support. This bill would expand the accredited investor definition to include individuals that are certified through an exam written by the SEC and administered by FINRA. It is my firm belief that the accredited investor definition should not be tied exclusively to wealth. Wealth does not translate directly to investment know-how. There are plenty of wealthy individuals that know little to nothing about investing And there are people who may not have great means, but are very sophisticated investors.
So what the SEC here is trying to do, guys, is they're trying to raise it. So if you want to buy any kind of crypto in the US, you have to be an accredited investor. And they're actually trying to raise it from $1 million to $10 million, which is basically allowing regular people like you and me not to be able to buy and sell cryptocurrency. So that is what the SEC's plan is. They want the rich people to remain rich and be able to buy all of these great assets that are going to be going up in value, in my opinion. And they don't want regular people from owning them. And so this Mike Flood is kind of pointing that out right here.
So why not create a pathway for knowledgeable investors to participate in our private markets? This common sense bill does just that. It would direct the SEC to create an accredited investor exam that will be thorough, but that somebody with financial sophistication should be able to pass. This bill includes a long list of parameters to be included in this exam. All of them are intended to ensure investors understand the differences between private and public offerings and some of the potential risks that could emerge from those differences. The bill strikes an effective balance. It brings more investors into the accredited investor pool, but contains guardrails that would filter out individuals that do not fully understand private offerings and the investment risks associated with them. I'm proud of this bipartisan bill, which was the product of a robust discussion with our colleagues across the aisle. We have legislation today that would make for a thorough but fair examination for investors that want to become accredited investors. I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
All right. And then there's also this clip, guys.
Mr. Chairman, let's briefly take a step back and identify why we're here. The SEC and Gary Gensler have forced this committee's hand.
No.
There's simply no way that the digital assets ecosystem within the United States will survive without some kind of action from Congress to combat the regulatory deluge we've seen in the past few months. We've all heard from firms like Coinbase that they will move offshore. The reality is that in this environment, it's hard to blame them. In February, the SEC issued a proposed rulemaking that would severely restrict the ability of current custodians for registered investment advisors to continue to hold custody of those assets. Mr. Rivera, I'd like you to briefly speak to some of the challenges associated with the proposed rulemaking from the SEC for qualified custodians and how it would affect your firm. Specifically, as it stands, how many options does your firm have to custody digital assets? And would you expect this rulemaking to reduce your firm's options for providing custody services of digital assets?
Our firm has a very limited number of digital asset custodians. There are 3, perhaps 4. There are 3 that we trust. This rulemaking effectively reduces that to maybe 0. It seems like the intent is to make it extremely difficult to comply with the rule as proposed, which would mean that we could effectively be disenfranchised from being able to invest in the ecosystem.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to pivot to how broker-dealers work in the digital asset space and whether today's securities rules could possibly apply to the digital asset space as written. Broker-dealers that work with equities typically custody securities for their customers. However, with the current SEC custody rules, there's no way for a broker-dealer to directly custody customer assets. Mr. Zwihorn, can you describe what kinds of challenges this presents for broker-dealers within the digital asset space?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Congressman. So as you said, broker-dealers typically will custody their investor securities on their behalf, and that is part of the services they provide that facilitates the customer trading. The SEC has rules that regulate how broker-dealers do in order to protect customers, called the Customer Protection Rule, to ensure that those brokers don't mishandle or lose or steal those assets. That rule was adopted in the 70s originally. It's been amended over time. And not surprisingly, it doesn't refer to holding a crypto private key as one of the ways that a broker-dealer can permissibly hold customer assets. The SEC has struggled with determining what would be a safe mechanism for broker-dealers to hold crypto assets for customers. And the most recent step they took was to put out guidance that was time-limited. It expires actually 3 years from today, that would allow broker-dealers to hold custody if they have reasonable policies and procedures, but then there's a list of other conditions that brokers essentially can't meet because it would mean they couldn't do any other business.
Thank you. Let's move on to clearing and settling. Within the securities market, you need some sort of entity that ensures that a trade placed by an investor is ultimately settled between the buyer and the seller. The depository trust and the clearing corporation is the clearing agency that fills that role for securities. The current model, which requires a clearing agency, clear and settle trades, just doesn't really make sense for digital assets operated on a blockchain. Transactions clear in real time, and there's no need for one centralized intermediary. Can you continue with this question? You mentioned in your testimony the perils of applying the definition of clearing agency under the Exchange Act to validators and miners on a blockchain that participate in the settlement process. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Sure. So the definition of clearing agency under the Exchange Act is very broad, and it includes anyone that is facilitating the settlement of a securities transaction without the physical delivery of paper security certificates. That definition made sense in its context where it was regulating the securities market, the traditional securities market, and trying to bring a higher level of safety and security to the market where paper certificates were moving or where they were becoming dematerialized. Everyone in digital assets is facilitating the transfer of the asset without physical delivery, whether they are securities or not. But if they are securities, then arguably the definition would encompass a lot of different parties. Now, if a firm like a digital asset trading platform holds all the assets itself so that it can update its books in real time with every trade, it doesn't really seem like you need a separate clearing agency to just add an intermediation that is not actually technically necessary.
Thank you for your answer.
So what they're talking about there is they you know, the government wants to set up you know, the basically the FedNow system for all of crypto, right, where all transactions go through the government and they can see what's going on. So these are really important conversations, and these are actually from this week. I think actually this was even from I think yesterday, and so these are really important conversations that are happening that that we need to be talking about. We need to understand, so we're understanding where we're heading in the future here. And says crypto price warning: China, Biden, and the Fed could be about to destroy all the value of Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into the article. It's kind of more of an opinion article, but MasterCard doubling down on crypto blockchain efforts with new offering. Let me just show you this really quickly and we'll move on. It says MasterCard is looking to create infrastructure necessary to better asset blockchain transactions as regulation around the sector remains a work in progress, the company said. Called MasterCard Crypto Credential, the effort would define verification standards and offer technology needed for various use cases across the segment. Central banks and financial institutions have sought out to address security and compliance vulnerabilities as the scope of the blockchain technology has evolved. Raj, I can't do it, Raj. I'm sorry. I don't want to butcher your last name. MasterCard's head of crypto and blockchain wrote in a blog at the company's website, but to fully implement these rules and build scalable use cases, we need a way to be for trusted, compliant, and verifiable interactions to take place on public blockchain networks, he added in this post. So you can see that MasterCard, Visa, all these different guys want to get in. They know how great this is going to be. PayPal to enable on-chain transfers from Venmo accounts. Check this out. Just the gist of it. Austin, Texas, payments company PayPal or people will allow on-chain transfers for Venmo accounts starting in May. Jose Fernandez, the company's senior vice president and general counsel of blockchain, crypto, and digital currency, said during a panel on Consensus. He says you can buy a gift on Venmo and send it out. You can invite people and send it to another Venmo user. You can send it to a PayPal user. You can send it to an external wallet. You can send it to a hardware wallet, which we think is something fundamentally important, DePoint said. Consumers have been asking for that for a while. What you have here, guys, is banks. They want to custody your crypto, just like they custody your money, right? When you deposit money in the bank, it's actually not your money anymore. It's the bank's money. The bank owes you that money when you come to collect. But if the bank doesn't have that money, you know, whatever. But I guarantee you what you're going to see is JP Morgan Chase and these guys saying, hey, come bring your Bitcoin and Ethereum and your XRP or whatever the currencies are going to be, and we're going to pay you a 1% or 2% or 3% for holding your digital assets. You know, I am not going to do that. I'm going to stay very far away from that, but I guarantee you that is what's going to happen.
You could look at, say, for example, the Kraken settlement. There were some strategic choices in how they designed that custodial staking platform that increased the risk of Howey application. Sure, particularly the guarantees of returns. The penalty for that, though, first of all, shouldn't be a $30 million penalty when there's no fraud. Those are penalties you reserve for fraudulent activity. This was a non-registration settlement. Usually in normal securities law world, pre-Gensler, a settlement or a case involving non-registration, the result is maybe a small fine and then you register, right? That wasn't the case with the Kraken settlement. They weren't allowed to register. The settlement said, pay a huge fine and shut this whole thing down and don't do it anymore. That's incredible overreach to me. I think if they'd have told Kraken, spend $30 million developing a registration system for staking, they'd have done it. But that was not what the SEC wanted. And I think that's not what you expect from a good faith regulator.
I thought that was a great clip, and I wanted to show that to you. Swift will evolve capabilities to enable instant transactions from one account to another, transforming the Swift platform on the concept of transaction management. Swift development API channel to support high-value payments. And this is kind of just talking a little bit more about this. This is really not as important as what I want to show you. I want to keep going here. Stellar Foundation head still bullish on U.S. stablecoin law in 2023. So Danelle Dixon thinks we're going to have some stablecoin regulation here in 2023. Remember, stablecoin regulation comes first in any country, because if they want to launch a CBDC, that's the stablecoin, and they want to be able to have legislation for that first. So whenever you see stablecoin legislation going through in any country, that is the first thing that needs to happen. Okay. And then, crypto price, China and Biden could warn. I'm not going to go through this article, but look, Russia becomes second most powerful BTC miner in the world, right? So we really want to be paying attention to this, because if they become the first and they control 51%, guys, I really worry about people holding Bitcoin. So I want people who hold Bitcoin, who believe in it. Bitcoin, it's a store of value for the people that believe in it. But if governments decide to do something about it, you need to be very, very careful, okay? So if you see Russia becomes the #1 powerful most BTC miner and they control 51%, guys, you need to be very careful and ask your financial advisor about what you should do. The U.S. debt is almost at 32 trillion. It has gone past its legal ceiling. Only some treasury tricks are starving on default. Congress has to agree on the raise of the ceiling. During the last Trump administration, the debt ceiling was raised 3 times. It's been raised 79 times since its inception. I think it's 39 under Republican presidents and 29 under Democratic presidents. So this is not something new. These guys are fighting over it, and they just need to raise the debt ceiling and get on it. I wanted to show you this, and I'm sure you've seen this before, but I want to show you how much value is going to end up on the blockchain. This is even from 2020. So this is not, I couldn't find a current 2023 evaluation of this, but I wanted to show you this. Okay, so each square is in the size of 1 billion, right? Silver, 1 billion. Cryptocurrency, right? Other coins, military spending, okay? US budget deficit, coins and banknotes, right? Fed's balance sheet, billionaires, gold, jewelry, right? Fortune 500 companies, stock market, right? Money supply, global debt, households, governments, non-financial corporates, financial sector, global real estate, which is $326 trillion, commercial, agricultural, global wealth, right? Understand all of this value. Derivatives, check this out. Derivatives are basically a $1 quadrillion in notional value on the high end. I've seen 600 million to $1 quadrillion. All of this stuff is going to be digitized and added to blockchains. What does that mean for us? That means whatever blockchain digitizes this value and puts it on that particular blockchain, like if a $1 trillion derivative contract was created on the XRPL, on a private sidechain or whatever, that $1 trillion would be added to the value of the market cap, okay? And that's how that's supposed to work. So this is really where the price is going to come from, adding value, adding debt, and payment flows on the XRPL or on the XLM or any other blockchain. It's not going to come from me and you putting in $5 or $10 or $1 million, whatever. That's not where the price is going to come from. The price is going to come from circulating supply, and it's going to come from how much value is that network going through, okay? Just want to understand that. Here is the CFTC. He's the former CFTC head. Says regulators can engage with crypto if they have to. They will do it. This is a great 4-minute clip. I want to play this whole thing.
Thoughtful people on both sides of the political aisle are appropriately concerned about misuse of such stockpiles of financial data, wreaking havoc on financial privacy and economic liberty. And therefore, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is not wrong to be concerned. And in 2022, Congressman Tom Emmer quite thoughtfully introduced legislation focused on CBDC privacy. And earlier this month, the House Financial Services Committee reintroduced a stablecoin bill that raises similar concerns about CBDC. But strangely, that legislation contains not a single word protecting Americans' privacy in stablecoins. 3 pages about CBDC, and it mentions privacy in CBDC, 70 pages about stablecoins, and not one word about privacy. That's an oversight. It's a grave oversight. That must be addressed in any future stablecoin bill. Let's be clear, absolutely clear, there is nothing inherently superior about non-sovereign digital currency in protecting privacy over central bank digital currency. Nothing whatsoever. Both of them will be massive honeypots of users' financial data, creating the opportunity for wide-scale mischief and abuse. It's entirely foreseeable that private sector sponsors of cryptocurrencies and stablecoins, or even commercial servicers of digital dollars, such as wallet providers, could be put under government pressure to conduct surveillance, report on activity, and disable financial transactions with disfavored groups and activities. This could be done in the same way that we now know the US government has had full access to everything on Twitter, including private direct messages between users. Fit-for-purpose stablecoin legislation must protect American citizens' financial rights to privacy. In democratic societies, lawful transactions in digital money, whether it's sovereign digital money or non-sovereign, must be immune from political surveillance and censorship, regardless of who's in power today, 4 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And that's why the advent of both stablecoins and digital dollars offers us the opportunity to reassess our existing financial surveillance system in their entirety. It provides the chance to reestablish financial law enforcement in more true accord with American constitutional norms, the presumptions of innocence, and the rule of law. My friends, money is power, and the digital future of money is upon us. The trajectory of the world is towards the creation of massive scale, singular currency platforms. Whether they're CBDCs or stablecoins is irrelevant. Financial power arrangements worldwide will be revamped, and the informal currency zones, the Eurozone, the dollar zone of the past, will yield highly integrated digital currency networks of the future. The world will have CBDCs and stablecoins, whether we like it or not, and whether the US chooses to lead or to follow. The question is not whether the digital future of money can be forestalled. It can't. The question is whether surveillance coins of authoritarian governments will have the digital future to themselves, or whether they will encounter competition from freedom-protected digital currency endorsed by venerable democracies like the United States.
I mean, I thought that was a fantastic clip. I had to share it with you guys. I thought that was just brilliant. We have a little bit more here, guys, and then we're going to end. I know my chats go a little bit long, but there's so much information to go over weekly, and all this stuff is a lot from this week. This is actually a guy from, I think he's from Bermuda, and they changed a bunch of laws in Bermuda for crypto companies to come register. Check this out.
I think what Coinbase recognized, which is what a lot of other companies have recognized, is that we have a superior regulatory environment. I remember I was a consensus 5 years ago when we announced that we would be tabling the Digital Asset Business Act. 5 years on, we provided regulatory clarity then. We have regulatory clarity for derivatives, staking, lending, all those various items, which companies want. And so from that perspective, when they examined all of the various options, they decided that Bermuda was the best place to build out their global business. And so from that, we are heartened, but they're not the first big names to come to Bermuda, whether it's Block and Cash App or Circle, Next Door, XBTO, others that have been in Bermuda for a while, that have full licenses, that are continuing to serve the world. So I think that we'll see more and more, because it is, as I've said, a race to the top for regulation. And Bermuda has proven that we are a place that you can do that.
You got to love it, guys. The whole world is rushing towards it. And in America, we have stupid people like Elizabeth Warren. Basically, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Marshall DeLay, reintroducing crypto bill due to lack of sponsors. She can't get the people behind her to anti-crypto. She's a Democrat. I just don't understand that how much money this could save normal, regular people. And these are her constituents. And she'd rather keep the current banking system because she's bought out by Gensler and JP Morgan and all these guys that fund her campaign. I truly dislike this person, this lady. Here's a great clip from the head of is Anthony Welfare, the head of CBDC, is in Europe and Global. It's a 2-minute clip. And then we're almost done, guys. I just got a little bit more and we're almost done, okay?
I think, from Ripple's perspective, this is an amazing time because real projects do real solutions using blockchain payments technologies happening. And we see it. You've got people here who really understand that there is a technology that can be used and there is a future for it. So central bank issued currency doesn't necessarily mean that the central bank wants to monitor and manage all your transactions. What they want to do is improve the financial system and make it quicker, smarter, cheaper, and more efficient for the people. They want to make sure that people in parts of the country with, no banking system, branches, for example, can still do banking like you could in a city. So there's lots of really good benefits of a CBDC. I mentioned fractional payments and things like that, settling securities immediately, things like that. There's massive benefits. What the central banks are looking at and talking about is, there's a couple of big issues that are sort of challenges to be fixed at the moment. One is interoperability. So if you have a digital euro and a digital pound of a different network, well, it's still not going to work. It's still, so we don't expect them to be on the same platforms because each country is different, each jurisdiction, but we still need to do the interoperability in the middle. For us, that's brilliant because we're a cross-border company. We've spent 10 years building the technology that is cross-border with current systems. So we're looking forward to sort of helping and show how that can work with CBDC to old fiat or fiat to crypto or any of these different mixes that's going to happen in and around the CBDCs. And then, you've mentioned privacy. Privacy is very important. And the technology can do many different things with privacy, from making the transaction completely secure to making it completely open. That's the point of blockchain DLTs. Governments are working on what they want and how they want it to work. And it will be very different in different countries. And what they need for their people is the important part. So the ECB, for example, has said very clearly a number of times privacy is their number one concern and their number one area to look at. And that's been since day one. They're doing lots of work and projects. So what it looks like in the end, I don't know. But they're well aware of it, and it's a very important topic. But it will come out through the processes over the next few years.
Next few years, guys. This is the head legal guy from Coinbase. I'm not going to play this clip. It's a minute long. Coinbase is Coinbase. I really don't love supporting Coinbase. So I just want to play because we've gone a little bit longer here because of the screw ups, and I apologize. But hey, guys, if you're finding value in these chats and you think you want, 1, 2, 3, 4, even 8 of these chats a month, I do so much research. I'm talking like 10, 12 hours a day of research, bringing all of this stuff together. I mean, like I said, we have Patreon now. You can sign up for our Discord, or if you want, you can become a super subscriber. I'm going to be creating personal content for those, and you can have direct access to me if you so choose to. This is actually talking about the fracturing in currency markets. The network infrastructure being built in the world of cryptocurrency is more than just magic internet money, not to be confused with the ticker MIM, magic internet money. Rather than cryptocurrencies have durable value in their native tokens and will find permanent place among other currencies of the world. The basket of currencies resulting from evolutions of fiat currencies, stablecoins, CBDCs, popular layer 1 networks, and some layer 2 networks will bring diversification to the US dollar centric world economy. While the G7 economies will need to figure out how to innovate the SWIFT payment system to incorporate CBDCs. And I'm going to show you how they're going to do this. I'm going to show you right freaking here how SWIFT is going to do this. Check this out. More information, how, so this is not sure the validity, but trust me when I'm saying that they're looking. So this is House panel passes accredited investor bill. So they're working on a bill. I hope that didn't screw up the freaking thing. If it did, Lauren, text me if that just screwed it up. Sometimes sometimes it screws up. But the Great Escape, right? You have all these BRICS countries escaping. You know, you got the G8. Now that Russia left, G7, G5, G4 collapsing, and BRICS. I do think India is going to be a great place for new businesses to get in and make money. India is growing rapidly. They know about the technology. They're using the technology. India is going to be a great place to invest, in my opinion, over the next couple of years here. Where do 8 billion people live here? 4.2% of the world live in the US, and then this is the rest of the world, right? And this is the rest of the world that's kind of uniting against the US dollar, right? You got Brazil, India, you got China, you got all of Africa here who are also working on a common currency between themselves. I mean, when it comes to like the G7 countries, they're very small. I think it's like 700 million people opposed to 3.6 billion people in BRICS. As more countries join BRICS, it's going to force them onto it. And also to world output projection 2023. I'm afraid if I make this bigger, it's going to screw it all up. But India has the best real GDP annual percentage. India is first here. China makes up their numbers, so I don't know if I can believe this with China, but Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and then here you go: UK -3, Germany -1, South Africa 1.1, France, Italy. India is the place to go for investments right now, in my personal opinion. And then also to, the court decision on March 6th, the court issued a 57-page opinion deciding which opinions on the SEC versus Ripple experts can be considered on summary judgment and if it needed a trial, and which opinions need to be stricken. Specifically, the SEC's experts' testimony regarding the reasonable expectations of an XRP purchaser were struck from the record, along with their expert who attempted to determine what caused the price of XRP to change. Ripple experts' decision on summary judgment in 2023. So this can happen at any time, guys. I don't know when. If someone tells you they know when it's going to happen, they probably are lying to you, unless it's the judge telling you for sure. The European Parliament is working on regulation. This is actually pretty interesting. They have added crypto asset service providers, also known as CASPs, into this legislation that they're working on. And I will keep you updated along the way on this. But I really wanted to kind of get into, this. So check this out. So successfully testing paves the way for CBDC cross-border use. This was March 9th of last month. Check this out. So whenever I see Swift doing testing with banking partners, I look into the banking partners, and here are the banking partners that Swift worked with. The solution development, testing, and truly been a global collaborative effort. Sandbox participants include Banque de France, Deutsche Bank, Bundesbank, Monetary Authority of Singapore, BNP Paribas, HSBC, Intensa Sao Paulo, NatWest Bank, Royal Bank of Canada, CNBC, Societe Generale, Standard Chartered, and UBS. All of these banks, except one of them, I can't remember which bank it was. All are partnered with Ripple. Okay, so you're having Swift all of a sudden now is successfully testing waves for CBDC for cross-border use cases, and they're partnering with 11 or 12 out of the 12 banks that are Ripple partners. That's pretty interesting if you ask me. Okay, and here's their timeline and approach. Every bank needs to be on this new ISO by 2025, but it really is a race for banks to get on this new network to start saving money. Banks are already at a very time low. I just got a little bit more here, guys, and we'll end here.
Certified Finastra.
I opened it up to. Lawrence, text me if I screwed this up, man. But how Finastra connects to Ripple Swift with ISO 20022. I hope you can see this, but here's Swift. Finastra is a Ripple partner. And so Swift has different routes. Here you go, Finastra, you go Ripple, Swift, or together. I just thought that was pretty interesting. I don't need to read that to you. But Swift, Swift all of a sudden now is working with DLT ledgers and with different things. I do think these guys are going to be, I personally said this a year ago or longer, that I think Ripple will be a white label for Swift. I could be totally wrong, but Swift only moves $400 billion a day, guys. And I'm really interested in what the US is going to do. The US, the FedWire system moves $4 trillion a day, and the FedWire security system moves $1.3 trillion a day. The FX market moves $7.5 trillion a day. If you didn't watch my video, the best XRP video I've made on my channel, it has about 35,000 views, about 2 weeks old. Go watch that video. I get into all of this great information, but I want to play this one clip from this gentleman.
If a digital asset activity occurs, If a digital asset activity occurs on the spot market, it's not a security, it's not a leveraged retail commodity.
Hold on, I screwed up. I know.
If a digital asset activity,
hold on.
Digital assets by market capitalization. Now, there are thousands of digital assets, but the top 15 account for about 86% of the market. Second, I look to what the commissions themselves have said about those 15 digital assets. Not a chairman, not a commissioner, but the commission itself, because only the commission can speak for itself. Based on my review and looking at CFTC and SEC enforcement actions, it appears that the CFTC has asserted that 7 of the top 15 digital assets are commodities. These 7 digital assets are some of the largest, accounting for approximately 76% of the digital asset market. The SEC, as a commission, has never challenged any of those CFTC determinations, some of which have been around for years. Instead, the SEC, in an enforcement action, has asserted that only 1 of the top 15 digital assets is a security, and that digital asset currently accounts for about 2% of the market. 76 to 2. 76% a commodity, 2% a security, and the rest of the top 15, about 8% undetermined. I don't think that should be very surprising, because the market division between swaps regulated by the CFTC and securities-based swaps regulated by the SEC is about 90% swaps for the CFTC and 10% security-based swaps for the SEC. So I conclude where I began. There's a significant regulatory gap in federal spot market regulation of digital assets because the large majority of digital asset spot market activity falls outside the regulatory jurisdiction of the CFTC and the SEC.
It's interesting how the top 15, right? They only sued Ripple, didn't sue anybody else. I do think there's a whole backseeing that's going to happen about this. There's a lot of corruption behind all of this, and I hope it all does come out. Starburst Juicy versus now live on HBAR. I thought this was just kind of fun. Built on Hedera, guys. It's getting big. Gold is still being bought at record levels. Gold has never been bought this high in the last 60 years by central banks. Bank of America says gold price could be as high as $2,500 per ounce over the next couple months or years here. I thought this was kind of funny here. Check this out.
I put a microchip in my arm and it's the best thing ever. This chip is a powerhouse. It's got everything I need. A credit card, my ID, my medical info, and even my keys. And when it's time for groceries, you just tap your wrist and bam, transaction done. It's like magic. In a medical emergency, it can save my life. Experts can easily identify me and my medical history. I feel like a sci-fi character and I'm loving it. This amazing chip is totally free. That's right, no more digging into your pockets. And the best part, the surgery is quick. They'll give you a cookie afterwards.
I am not getting any microchips inserted into my arm. Forget that. I'm going to end it on 2 things. Here we go. This is 2 more things and we're done.
Economic numbers suggest the American economy is slowing fast while inflation remains donkey stubborn high, raising the specter of that dreaded combination against which our generously compensated experts are powerless, stagflation. First, the numbers. New data says growth in the first quarter dropped by half. from 2.6% to 1.1%. Taking out rising government spending brings that to 0.3%, which is roughly how fast the population grows. In other words, the American economy is barely holding on, or as the New York Times dryly put it, the efforts to cool off the economy are having an effect. It gets worse if we look under the hood, because it turns out even that so-called growth is running on fumes, because investment, the way we actually grow an economy and actually get richer, is falling. And it has been falling for a full year now. Meaning at this point, the only thing holding us above water is consumption, fueled not only by unsustainable government debt, but by unsustainable personal debt, digging holes in credit cards, buying essentials on installment. By the way, I've got a video on this, how 1 in 10 Americans is now buying their groceries on installment, which is pretty dire. Now, it's worth pausing to address the Keynesian fiction that consumption is how to grow an economy. It is not, because consumption is just what it says on the tin. It means using stuff up, which is nice to have, but if it's fueled by debt, it is not making us richer, it is making us poorer. So we don't have actual investment, we don't have new companies, new jobs, new innovations. In fact, we have mass layoffs and entire industries being banned as we speak, but at least we've got the debt. Now, one of the biggest shocks in the new numbers were inventories, which are plunging. This means companies are purging what they've got at any price they can get, suggesting they do not believe the consumer is anywhere near sustainable. So we're floating on debt, and the guys who know the consumer best can hear the clock ticking. Next up, the other piece of the stagflation nightmare, prices. New numbers yesterday showed the Fed's favorite measure of inflation came in at or above expectations. That was the 5th month in a row of upside surprise, and it suggests that inflation is nowhere near dead, which it should be given the Fed has just hiked rates at the most aggressive pace in 50 years. And we have the bank crashes to show for it, with First Republic's drama this week showing no sign of easing. Now, it's not just the US. Fresh numbers out of Europe show it limping along at 0.1%. It's actually lower than population growth, meaning they are getting poorer, while prices in the Eurozone are running at almost 7%, closer to 8% in once hard money Germany. So a specter is haunting the world, the specter of inflation. And standard policy tools, which means handing out trillions of dollars, do not work against stagflation. They actually make it worse, meaning the only tool they have left is massive 1970s style rate hikes that would likely crush the global economy, or, of course, tell their governments to spend less, which they will not do. All right.
All right. The last thing I want to end on, guys, is this.
Sleep tight, my beloved. You're my ticket out of this hellhole. Homer. Sorry. Our ticket out of this hellhole.
All right, I love that. I thought that was funny. The rest of this stuff, guys, that you can't see here, this is for my community, my Discord community. I just bought some new nodes from this new project. I'm going to share that with them. But sorry for all of the screw ups during the chat. I'm going to stop the screen sharing and answer any questions anybody might have. I know that this was not ideal, but I appreciate 62 of you guys here, an hour and 55 minutes. I know it went a little bit longer, but any questions I can answer for you guys? I know I'm not in the best place here. I'm moving. I'll be in Hawaii in about 10 days here. But what you guys got? Let me go through some of these comments and see if I can answer anything, or if anyone has any questions. Great to see you, Ariana. Great to see you, MMT. Thank you so much for all your support. Crypto Lax, great to see you, man. A-Prod, nice to see you. Melissa Leo, pleasure. Multi, nice to see you. Charles, if Coinbase are being sued by the SEC, what does that mean for them relisting XRP? I swear the strategics. So it's funny that, that the New York Attorney General or New York DA is going after Coinbase and Ethereum. They didn't delist Ethereum, did they? Coinbase still holds all of their XRP that they delisted. I think it's they hold like, I can't remember if it's like 1 billion or 2 billion XRP, but they have it in cold wallets, and then they will relist it once the court case ends, in my personal opinion. If not, they would have sold it already, right? Let me see here. Screen froze again. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Next free Sensei chat that I do on this open. Usually I do this in my Discord. In a chat where I don't have to worry about opening and closing stuff. Things are different on YouTube. I'm just finding out, so I do apologize about that. But I appreciate everyone who's watching. Can I answer anyone? Does anyone have any comments or anything else before we end today? You're quickly becoming my favorite YouTuber. Corey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That warms my heart. If you ask any of these people that are in my community, they know that I put everything, my heart and soul, into crypto and providing the best information as I can. It really means a lot. When you say things like that, it really touches my soul. So thank you. And Ariana, great work. I've been a Kryptonaire member since the fall. Best decision I've ever made. Ariana is one of my favorite people in the community. She joined, was like September or something like that. And then she was teaching her family crypto at Christmas dinner, right? She came in as somebody that didn't know much about what was going on or what was happening with the current. Let me see if I can change there we go. That's like a little bit better with the glare, right? It's about learning information as quickly as possible, right? Sometimes we don't have all of this time. We have kids running around. We have our jobs. We have freaking problems, tax problems, whatever problems that we have, right? And being able to come into a chat, twice a week, getting caught up with everything that you need to know that's super important. It could save you time. It could save you money. It can save you energy, right? And for what, $1 or $2 a day, you having access to this information, I think it's the most valuable time in your life to be paying attention. We are moving from a fiat system to a digital system, and all of that money in this fiat world is coming into the digital system onto certain blockchains. And when that happens, that is when you become part of that 1% of rich people, because all of that value now will live on blockchains, and all of that value will create an enormous market cap for those particular blockchains. That's stocks, bonds, derivatives, equities, oil, natural gas, gold, silver, palladium. I mean, everything is going to be tokenized. Carbon credits, water's being tokenized. I mean, everything of value, guys, is being tokenized. Energy, everything. So as that value moves on to blockchains, right, as we get regulation, that is where you become you're the same person, but now you become your own bank, right? Just to share some thoughts with you, since there's still 50 of you with us, and since we're still just chatting here, going out, right? Instead of now you going to the banking, asking them for a loan, your crypto is worth something. So you can actually go collateralize. You can go to the bank and say, hey, I've got $10 million worth of XRP here. I want to take out a $5 million loan on my XRP. And then you go out and you buy property, or you buy water rights, or you buy something that gives you a monthly return. Then you use that monthly return to pay back the loan, right? And then you get your XRP back. So you're basically using free money. And Crypto Lulu did a great video about this. Me and him had a great conversation about this before I saw that video. But he did a great video about this. Go check out his channel if you haven't. He's a brilliant guy. Really, he's just one of the nicest people that I've met in crypto. Crypto Lulu. Please go check out his channel if you haven't. He really is an amazing person, great mind. We're working on a chat with me, him, Molly Elmore, Black Swan Capitalist, and Jimmy Valley. And I think that conversation could be extremely valuable for all of us. Quick, so let me just go through some of these things. Thank you. Any comment on the central bank participating of Australia's Ripple, Swift, etc. testing? So I've seen a lot of documents where the National Bank of Australia has been working with Ripple on CBDC testing. Obviously, they're not going to come out and say it, but I've seen many documents talking about them testing that network and using a side chain to do that. Yeah, I do think Australia's National Bank will be using Ripple for CBDC. I could be wrong, but I personally believe that. Awesome community. Sensei does all the hard work. I try to, man. We have a good team. We have a good team, but this is my heart. This is my soul. I was in sales for a long time. I was in real estate, and I was like, man, this is really not where my heart is. I got, I watched my first XRP video a little over 4 years ago, and I knew right away I needed to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can. And I've dedicated every single day of my life to growing, gaining knowledge, and sharing that knowledge with as many people as I can. I'm not here to shill meme coins. I've been offered, $300, $500 to welcome, projects that I don't believe in to come on my channel and do AMAs with. I am not going to take money from projects to shill you guys bullshit. I want to talk about real life, real utility projects on this channel. If somebody like Link2 or, a big exchange that I trust comes and talks to me, of course, I'd look at that kind of type of partnership. But as far as like small DeFi projects that don't really have a use case, please don't even message me. I'm not going to use my channel or my audience to ingratiate anything like that. We want to talk about real value. We want to talk about what we want to own to become our own banks and and then once you become your own bank, you don't have to worry about going out and getting loans. If your friend wants to go out and buy a house, right? Check this out. If your friend wants to go out and buy a house from a bank and they're giving him a loan of about like 6% or 5%, whatever it is now, and you're like, I'll loan you the money to buy the house for 4%, right? But you beat the bank, right? And you can do that all through smart contracts. And if your friend defaults on the loan, now you have not only the house that you lent them the money to buy, but you also have your XRP. So there's just a lot of different things that you can do here to use your XRP or use your XLM or use your XCC to become your own bank. So you really want to keep these assets, in my opinion only, to keep these assets and hold them. And that's when they're truly going to find the value. And when they talk about the flip of the switch moment, what I believe that they're referring to there, guys and gals, is they're talking about banks finally starting to use this technology on a massive scale, right? Banks can save up to 80% just using stable coins instead of going through correspondent banking. They can save even more using something like ODL or XRP or XCC to move value, right? What was that? What did that guy say? He moved $50 million in 3 seconds and it cost him 30 cents, right? You can't do that with the correspondent banking system that's already broken. These crypto assets are the future, and we really need to be paying attention to that. You really, really do. Green Llama, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Thank you about National Bank. Yeah, and you know what? I think Black Swan Capitalist, he did a video with Crypto Lulu, and he had a insider at Australia's National Bank that told them that there was an already agreed upon price for XRP. I have no way of verifying that, but if you want to go search that video with Crypto Lulu and Black Swan Capitalist, they do talk about Australia's National Bank and them working with Ripple. That might be a very good place for you to gain some knowledge on that matter. Okay. Yeah, MMT, I love you, man. Thank you so much. It's about finding a community, guys. It really is, right? Now is the time of your life where if you don't go out and find a community, you're going to regret this for the rest of your life. You're not going to get another chance at this. We're lucky to be alive in a time where we're moving from a fiat system to a digital system, and millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires will be made with this new system. Let me tell you. And I want to be on that winning side. And that's why I dedicate my entire life every day. I'm not going out on vacations. I'm not doing any of that. I'm here researching, grinding every day, talking to people, growing with other individuals, trying to understand what's the technology. What do I need to be invested in myself? And that is what I do, guys. And all the people in the community, I love you in the Cryptonaires community. But I know not everyone likes Discord, and they like Patreon, or they like becoming a super subscriber. So if you like this chat and the value you got from this chat, even if we had all those little errors, you can you can become a super subscriber on YouTube, or you can become a Patreon user. I will be making specific content for those channels, and you can get direct access to me. But I just really want to thank all of you for spending this time with me. 2 hours and 6 minutes. It has gone a long time. Curious about the nodes you just bought. A Brown, well, you're in our community, so you're going to know about it in about, give me about 15, 20 minutes, man. I just need to just take a mental break, and I will tell you about the node that I just bought. All right. It's about $2,000. It's a little on the high side, but I'll tell you about the project, and I'll tell you all about why I did it, and you know, what I think might happen with it. All right. I'll tell you in Crypto Nerds Discord in a little bit here. Your gut feeling on how high you believe XRP will become, John Garcia. So check this out. I ran some models. Okay. And if the XRP ledger was used to move $25 trillion a day in value, which isn't a lot. We're talking about the US, you're talking about Canada, and you're talking about the UK. Just those three, right? That with Swift and SEPA and a couple other things, that's $25 trillion a day. And then if you start adding on derivative contracts, stocks, bonds, real estate, the price 5 digits, it could even go into six digits, maybe even 7 digits in 10, 20, 30 years. I don't know. It all depends on circulating supply, right? How much supply of XRP is actually out there, right? Because Ripple's bought back $8.4 billion since the lawsuit, right? And they use that for ODL and other purposes. And they already control the escrow, right? So it really is, they have maybe 60, 70% of the XRP already. Plus you have to have the exchanges and the exchange partners, they have XRP, plus me and you have XRP. So realistically, there's probably less than 20, 15% circulating supply of XRP. I have no way of getting the exact number. And if I did, trust me, I'd be running those models. But if we get down to like 2, 3, 4% circulating supply, and you need to move 20, 30 trillion dollars to the XRP ledger a day, you're talking about 5-digit XRP. There's just no way around it. It has to be at a high value to facilitate all of that. Right. And that really is, it was built to be the world's bridge currency, right? That's what it was built to be, right? That's why it has escrow. Look at any other crypto that's been made in the last 5 years. Any of them have an escrow? Well, what's the escrow about? What are the 1,700 contracts and NDAs about that we don't know about, right? What is the token allocation about, right? How do you pay off $32 trillion in debt in the US? Well, I mean, I have theories. Let's say the US said, okay, we'll settle with you, Ripple, but we want 1 billion XRP. Okay. And they take the 1 billion XRP, and other things happen where they bring on more central banks, right? Maybe they get 20, 30, 40 central banks on the XRP ledger, all those sovereign currencies, all that value on the XRP ledger, right? Moving all that money back and forth. Now you're talking about a really stupid price. You're really talking about a stupid price for XRP. And that's where I believe. I've seen so many documents, IMF, World Bank, BIS, all of these tests that are being done with Corda and all these other guys. A lot of it's being done with XRP and sandboxes. You can't create a brand new token like Quorum, brand new, just got out. They're sandbox testing it, but it just got out. It doesn't have 10 years of testing and everything else, right? When they went to do a sandbox test in Saudi Arabia, I think it was, they said, we don't even need to do the sandbox. We know the technology works. We know it works. We know it's good. Let's go, right? So, I mean, you got to know the UAE, Saudi Arabia, these guys know they want this technology. That's why they open up a free zone for tax-free for cryptos and all these companies, right? They want these companies there. They know how valuable it is. And I think you're going to see a huge FOMO period whenever we get a judge's decision. Remember, whatever the judge decides doesn't really matter to me. If they decided in the SEC's favor, 95% of Ripple's business is outside the US. If the US wants to hurt itself, fine. But how does the FedNow system work with instant settlement without blockchain? Does anybody ask the question? I don't know. It doesn't. So what are they going to do? Use Swift? Swift is the same correspondent banking system that we currently have. Is broken, right? Visa, MasterCard, same system. It's the same correspondent banking system. You have to have the blockchain DLT solution in the middle to make all of this happen, right? And Ripple's been working with the US for what, 9 years? 9 years they've been working with the Faster Payment, or 8 years, Faster Payments Task Force, Notcha Payments Task Force. They're the only blockchain company that was invited to that. I can't ignore those facts. I can't ignore those facts, right? They know these guys. They've been in the room, right? Ripple had, what was, Ripple was in the room with 126 different central bankers. They were the platinum partner. Hold on, let me look this up. Ripple, 126 central bankers. I know you guys can't see my screen. Give me a second here. Hold on. Here you go. Let me just pull this up real quick for you. Let me go back and share my screen. Give me 1 second. Present, share screen. I know that I will never use StreamYard to do this again, guys. I'm very sorry about how shitty this went, but I appreciate you sticking with me. All right, so check this out. Ripple becomes the only platinum partner in Global CBDC Symposium. The only platinum partner, right? Check this out. The Global Digital Monetary Institute, the DMI Symposium held in London, expands the scope and discussion of practical theoretical aspects of digital currencies like CBDCs and the future of financial markets. The events, which attended 126 central banks, U.S. Treasury experts from across the digital fintech realm, and a company named Ripple as their sole premier partner for the symposium. In the minutes following the release of the news, the XRP price rose this. But where else are you seeing other cryptocurrencies, right, that are in these meetings with these central banks? You don't. So my heart, my soul, my gut, my mind, everything that I know to be true, I think XRP is the one. And if somebody has information showing me that it's not, I'd love to have a great and open, honest conversation with you. And we can really talk about it. But if you guys like these chats, I can do like a live chat, just me and you talking, me and you, going back and forth, answering questions, maybe next week. I just went through like the hardest 7 days of my life. We had to move, we had to get out of the house. Our dog got sick. She was throwing up blood. We had to take her to the ER, and so much stuff happened within like a 7-day period. This has been the most stressful week of my life. So putting this chat together was hard enough for me emotionally, just to get through, because I know a lot of other stuff's happening on the side here. But I know I wanted to show you kind of how much hard work goes into this, and how much value you can start learning instantly, right? You can start getting access to this information instantly. I've done 32 of these chats this year alone in my community. That's not including the chats I do in other communities, right? So you're talking about hundreds of hours of me talking and me showing you what actually is legitimate in the space. So with that, I will leave you with much love in my heart. Thank you for staying. Thank you for supporting me. And my team, Cass, Lawrence, thank you guys for doing this stuff on the back end. And thank you to my community. And thank you to my future community members who want to join and become a part of what we're growing here. We're growing family. We're building. And we want to learn. We want to learn. We want to see the proof. And once we have all of that information, we make the best educated decision. Remember, we are in a small market right now, but it's about to become the biggest market in the world. And you want to be a part of that market. All right. I love you all, you guys. All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I will see you in the next time. Namaste. Peace be with all of you. Okay. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.